Hey church, decided to take it off my deck. I wanted to capture the flowering crabapple tree. And so I'm here on our property, and I just wanted to bring you an update this week. This is a beautiful time of the year and the sun's shining, so happy Friday to you, happy long weekend to you. I just wanted to bring you up to speed on some of the things that have been happening at the church. We've got a brand new video series that I'm really excited about. Jason Armstrong is back in the building, virtual building, and he's going to be doing a new video series called Upfront. And this video series will be about him interviewing some of our frontline workers and finding out how this season has impacted them, how we can support them, and a few other questions along the way. And so those will be showing up. Actually, first one is this weekend, and we're so looking forward to having Jason participate with us and to just offer his gifts to the church in this way. Also, I want to highlight our YouTube channel, Vernon Alliance Church. There's lots of new videos that are there and resources that will be available. So you can subscribe to that YouTube channel and it'll be updated and it'll notify you of when new items get posted. And we'd love to have you subscribe and participate in that platform as well. As many of you know, I love to hear the reports back from our international workers and our global partners. First and foremost, GAP team, I want to say a huge thank you for serving our church in this way during this time. On June 6th and 7th, we're going to be having a missions-focused service. It'll be a virtual service, of course, but we will have stories from across the globe of how God is active and at work in and through our partnerships with those overseas. One of the areas I want to highlight today is Wellspring International. They're involved in Rwanda, helping with childhood education and eliminating poverty in all its forms. But this pandemic has created a special need that they are stepping into. It has many different platforms which they're going to be involved in. One of them is they will be temporarily assisting the district that they're involved in an emergency food security program. So they are aiming to bring 35 tons of key foodstuffs. So beans, maize, flour, and what they estimate is that in order to feed 6 people for a minimum of 2 weeks, it costs about $21.86 Canadian. And so that's so minor compared to what we are facing and what we expect to feed ourselves with. And so I just want to say, these are ways that you are involved in caring for others that you may not even know. The GAP team has committed an amount to support the work in Rwanda through this. And so I just want to say a special blessing and thank you to you, the church, for doing this. Also, they realize that as the restrictions are lifted, there's 138 schools that they are involved in. And so they're going to be just reestablishing the education ecosystems. They're going to be looking at ways to combat dropout, and they're going to be addressing community needs in this time. So a huge shout out and thank you to Wellspring International and to the GAP team for your hard work and diligence in this season. And also, VAC, thank you for your support of our missions programs and partnerships during this season as well. So we've now been encouraged to go outside, and we've been encouraged to kind of stretch our wings, so to speak, and get outside and enjoy nature. So it just makes sense to have a series that's based on the out of doors. Plus it's summertime in the Okanagan. Who doesn't want to be outside? This series, the title is The Path Less Traveled, Pursuing an Uncommon Faith. So Pastor Darren will be leading us through the study of the book of Ephesians, and we'll be following that church in their journey and seeing what lessons we can learn from them. So that starts this weekend. So I'm so excited to see where we go with this series. I'm so excited to see how Pastor Darren leads us through this. And I've got some inside information that he's going to be doing some taping on the out of doors. So many of you know that he's an outdoors enthusiast, and so we look forward to those backdrops as well. Today I want to talk a little bit about a passage of scripture. And in this season, sometimes we come to a place where we just wonder, like, what is going on? Like, when can we either get back to normal, or what is my point? I mean, there's been days in the past where I'm just like, would this be done already? And I can't achieve anything during this time. And perhaps that's you. Perhaps you're facing that as well. And about 4 days ago, I was hit with this verse, 2 verses actually. So Psalms 33 verse 4, it says, "For the word of the Lord is right and true. He is faithful in all he does. But the plans of the Lord stand firm forever, the purposes of his heart through all generations." And so the thing that I began to think about is, what does this mean, first off? That's where my head goes. And the second thing is, what is God trying to say to me in this season? And so as I unpack the first part of verse 4, it says, "For the word of the Lord is right and true." And I think we all know that, we accept that. We have the understanding that his word is truth. What he speaks, he will do. I think we all have that. But when you dive down into the Greek of the original words of this, there's this element that kind of jumped right out at me. And this element is straightforwardness. Now you may say, well, how does that fit, Dwayne? Well, sometimes when I'm reading through Scripture, I sometimes interpret it through my own bias or through my own books I'm reading or whatever. And I sometimes can also feel like that God's just kind of keeping something just beyond my grasp. That I can't quite see what the plan is, and I can't quite see where I need to go. And yet, Scripture tells me that for the word of the Lord is right and true. In other words, the word of the Lord is just, it's equitable, it's good, it's wise, but there's also a straightforwardness about it. And I think sometimes when I read Scripture that if I would just set aside my own personal filters and just allow the word to speak to me, and how you do that could be very different. For me, I read something until a passage jumps out, and then I actually go into one of my apps and I dissect the words in the original Greek meaning and the context, and that helps me to understand it. But it's not something that's hidden. It's not something that I have to arm wrestle God over to figure out. It's actually something that's just very present and really there. And so I think that's a challenge today for us to just kind of keep our hearts open to what God is actually wanting to say to us. So as we jump ahead, this one really got me excited because I had been just wondering, okay, God, why are we experiencing this and why are we facing this? And yes, I know that you're in the red hot center of everything, and I know you have everything under control, but what could the purpose possibly be? Psalms 33:11 says, "But the plans of the Lord stand firm forever, the purposes of his heart through all generations." Now, at first I kind of glossed over that, to be honest with you, but I reread it and something really jumped out at me. It says, "The plans of the Lord stand firm forever, the purposes of his heart through all generations." So the things that he intends to do will be accomplished, regardless. And so his plans are not altered by the passing of generations or the passing of years or even a COVID-19 pandemic. His plans are so far beyond what we can understand that they continue regardless of the circumstances around us. And I think about myself, and man, it's hard in these days to plan 2 weeks out. But God's plan is above all. It's beyond all, and it's not impacted by our external circumstances. So if his plans are that big, and if his plans need to be carried on through all of the generations, then what's my part in it? Well, here's an exciting passage of Scripture as well. Jeremiah 1:5 says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." God knew who you were and exactly where to place you for the purpose of playing your part in seeing his plans and heart move through all generations. So in other words, this creates hope and this creates a wonderful peace for me. In other words, in this moment, on this date, at this time, God knew that I'd be standing right here under this tree and I'd be speaking to you, and it was part of his plan to allow his grand plan to continue on through all generations. Isn't that amazing? Guys, this is phenomenal. That means that every one of us is uniquely positioned and placed for the time and place and season that you're in. That means that we have the opportunity to step up to be the hands and feet of Jesus that allows and sees his plan go through all generations. When I go, his plan still continues. When I'm affected in lockdown, his plan still continues. And so therefore there's a peace. He knew me. He knew who I would be and who I would become and where I needed to be in this moment in time. And he knows the same about you. So now how do we reconcile this? Because you may say, Dwayne, I hear you, I understand, I get it. Well, here's how I interpret it. And I offer it to you. Let's go back to verse 4. It says, for the word of the Lord is right and true. He is faithful in all he does. His word is an outflow. His work is an outflow of his word. You will be fulfilling your part in the grand passing of God's plan through this generation as you get up every morning, as you put your feet on the floor and you get up and you begin to go through the day handling the things that are put in front of you, exhibiting the fruit of the Spirit. You are fulfilling your role. Now that doesn't mean it'll look the same all the time. But it does mean at this moment, at this time, in this place, in this role, in this moment of this generation, you have been chosen to be where you are. So church, what are we going to do? Let's get up. Let's allow hope to be reestablished within us. Let's allow the peace of God that comes out of knowing this to guide our footsteps. And every day that we get up, let's purpose in our heart to do what's set before us with skill and wisdom and understanding and discernment for the glory of God and the worship of God for the furthering of his kingdom. You are uniquely placed in this moment of history to play a part in the passing and the fulfilling of his plan through all generations. Isn't that amazing? That creates such hope. There's parts of me that I look at and I go, I wish they were different. But God still knows that. And yet he still chose each one of us where we're at to do the work. So church, as we step into a new series and a new weekend, let's open our hearts and let's allow God to challenge us in the new things that are in front of us. And let's step into them and lean into them in the days ahead. Love you, church. We'll see you next weekend. See you on the weekend. Church, vaclive.com. Take care. Bye-bye.